To those at the public gallery to the planning committee for October. There's others who are members of the committee who are still chatting away. Kindly desist. Can I just remind everybody that you are on camera potentially and you will be seen and possibly heard. So just be careful what you say. And I don't think we're expecting a fire alarm for any legitimate reason other than an emergency, in which case, therefore, if there is a fire alarm, please follow the officers who will guide us out of the building. My computer is making a noise, telling me it's just about to desist from working. Anyway, we'll get on with things. So the attendance sheet is circulating. We have some apologies from Rachel.
Nigel Davis, Keith James, Barry Taylor and Wayne Tomlinson.
Are there any other apologies, please, members? Thank you. Okay. Can we deal then with the next item, declarations of interest? Tim, would you please?
Thank you, Chair. A number of declarations I'm aware of, members. Councillor Stewart-Evans, perhaps I could deal with your declarations first. Items 5, 7 and 8 on the agenda. In relation to each of those applications, I think in relation to item 5, you wish to declare a personal and prejudicial interest because this relates to storage containers and one of them is used by Blenavon Town Council, of which you're a member. Is that correct, Councillor Evans?
That is correct.
Thank you. And in relation to items 7 and 8, planning permission application and then a listed building application considering the same area of land, the applicant there is Blenavon Town Council, so again I think you wish to declare a personal and prejudicial interest. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. And when those applications come on, then obviously you'll have to leave the room, Councillor Evans.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Furser, I think you're in identical situation as a member of Blenavon Town Council for those three applications. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then Councillor Parish, two items on the agenda, item 6 and item 9. In relation to both those items, Pontypool Community Council were consultees, and I anticipate, therefore, you wish to declare a personal only interest. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. And Councillor Ashley, item 10 on the agenda, the bridge at Lantarnham. I believe you wish to declare a personal only interest in relation to that item for two reasons. Firstly, as a member of Cumbraon Community Council who were consultees, and secondly, as the chair of the Monmouthshire and Brecon Canal Steering Group. Is that correct, Councillor Ashley?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations, members? Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I forgot to introduce the top table. I'm Brian Mulby, Chair of the Planning Committee. On my left is Richard Lewis, who's the Head of Development Management for the Council, and on his left is Paul Wielden, who's the Head of Transportation. On my right is Rachel Beale, who's Clerk to the Committee, and Tim James, who is Legal Officer for the Council. Sitting over there is Caroline, who's operating the machinery to record this, and that's Norman Jones standing at the dais who will be presenting one of the reports. Okay, next item is the minutes of the planning meeting held on the 18th of August, which have been circulated. Before we go through them, can I just thank Councillor Norma Parish for stepping into the breach when I was unable to attend that meeting and for chairing it. So, thanks for that, and can we go through for accuracy in terms of page 1? Page 2. The next page, which I think has got page 7 at the end. Then page 8. And 9. Ten. And 11. And 12. So are you all happy that they constitute a true record of proceedings? It's been moved by Councillor Parish, seconded by Councillor Seaborn. In which case I will sign them later on. Thank you. Let's move on then to item 4, planning appeal. This is more for information than anything, but it's good to know that the appeal against the council was dismissed and the enforcement notices issued by the council were upheld. Anybody got any comments or questions regarding that item?
Note the report, Chair.
Thank you very much. All happy with that? Okay, let's move on then to item 5, which is a planning application in respect of 2 containers for storage at the side of Blenavon Rugby Football Club Social Club, and Councillor Evans and Furzer, as they declared earlier, have personal and prejudicial interests, which is why they're leaving the room. Okay, there are a couple of corrections to be made in respect of this report, which Richard will deal with.
Thank you, Chair. Just to draw your attention to the plan on the agenda, but it's also up on the screen there. The 2 portable buildings in red are shown next to each other. In actual fact, on site, they're one behind the other. It makes no difference in terms of the planning report, and the recommendation stays the same, but just to clarify that. The second thing, on page 19 and condition 2, we have left out the timing of that requirement. So we will add in, if members decide to approve the application, a timing that this has to be painted within 6 months. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ashley?
I've seen fair few sports grounds. This seems to be fairly usual practice on some of them to have containers like this. Is that a true fact?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen them at sports grounds before. They need planning permission, and we would normally give them a temporary permission to overcome a particular temporary issue in terms of storage, but we would normally be expecting them to provide permanent accommodation there if it's a long-term storage need.
How long would your temporary permission normally be for?
Depends on the circumstances, but it's 3 years normally, but it does depend on how temporary the containers are required for.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Anybody prepared to move something? Councillor Seaborn?
I'd like to move the recommendation, subject to the 2 conditions that are listed.
Together with the time limit relating to the painting, as suggested by Richard. Thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Could we ask Councillors Furzer and Evans to return? And we, at the same time, welcome Councillor Powell, who is apologising for being late, evidently, rather than not here altogether. And there is a declaration to be dealt with. Yes, please. Oh, ring the bell. That's a good thought. Whilst we're waiting for the 2 members to return, Councillor Powell, we've dealt with declarations of interest. As a member of Cwmbran Community Council, would would you wish to declare whatever Tim asks you now?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Powell. It's item 10 on the agenda. Cumbraon Community Council were consulted on that, so in accordance with normal practice, I anticipate you wish to declare a personal only interest. Is that correct? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. So let's move on to item 6, which is renewal of planning permission for the 24-bed residential care home for adults with complex health needs. Richard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to correct, we had received comments from our forward planning team not objecting to the application, but they were omitted from the report. So just to let you know, there was no objections from the forward planning officers.
Thank you. This is a renewal. Any questions or comments, please? Everybody happy with it?
Yeah, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, Brian, please.
It's been moved by Councillor Constance and seconded by Councillor Seaborn that we approve the recommendations. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. We're going quicker than my computer will operate. Right, agenda item 7. The addition of a new metal gate to the existing piers. We say cheerio again. And I think Councillors Furser and Evans will be out both for item 7 and item 8. Okay, so Richard, you're going to explain, please.
Thank you, Chair. There's 2 applications here relating to the same site and for the same development. The first one, on page 35, is the planning application. Members are invited to determine the application. We're recommending that it be approved. The second application, on page 39, is for listed building consent. Because it's a listed building, it also requires listed building consent. We're minded to approve this application, but because it's a listed building, it needs to be referred to CADU first. CADU can either decide to make the decision themselves, or they can refer it back to the council to make the decision. So as long as members are happy, are minded to approve the application, we'll refer it to CADU. It may come back and we would then issue the decision under delegated powers. Okay.
Thank you. And if you notice that the applicant is Mr. Alan Jones, so ignore 1 or 2 of those Mr. Allens. Any comments or questions? You're all happy with the proposal, which is to
Move the officer's recommendations, Chair.
Councillor Seaborn, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Wade. Ready to vote? All those in favour, please show. That 2 is unanimous. So, can we move on then to item 8, which is the same topic, but as Richard explained, this is to refer it to CADU for their observations. And I'm just trying to find the recommendation, sorry. Permission be granted subject blah blah blah. In the interest of, yes. Okay, are you happy with the recommendation? It's fairly logical from having approved the previous one. So, anybody prepared to move? Councillor Parrish moves, seconded by Councillor Cameron. All those in favour, please show. That's approved. Grand. Let's get the others back.
Again, sorry, just to clarify, the application is being made by Neighbourhood Services, and as you now know, Duncan is the Chief Officer for Neighbourhood Services and Planning and Public Protection. So under reports submitted by, just halfway down the page, that would need to be myself in there rather than Duncan Smith. Thank you, Chair.
And Norman will be making a briefish presentation, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members will have seen the correspondence that was issued that I sent around on the 9th of October relating to the representations that were received at these offices on Friday the 2nd of June. I'm not going to respond in relation to the contents now, but also in the committee report reference was made to the ward member comment. And I just wanted to state that the application site actually takes in 3 wards, and the comments attributed in the report were made by Councillor Jeremiah as part of the site falls within the Brynwern Road. Within the Winevelin ward, most of it falling within Brynwern, and part of it within Pontypool. So just for matter of record, Chair. This site and application was the subject of a visit by the inspection panel on the 1st of October, and obviously notes are in the agenda. In terms of the proposal is to remove the tree belt which sits at the bottom end of the fields and create a pathway from the cycleway which runs along the main road. The path will zigzag up through where the trees line is, and then follow a route adjacent to the southern part of the site. And basically it's put forward to deal with the expansion of George Street School, which lie opposite the area of open space, and form a safe route to the school, rather than children and pedestrians using the southern part of George Street as it comes down to the lights, which, as you can see, is fairly constrained with footpath only on one side, and that being substandard. So it's to address those safe route to school issues, and this is the plan that has been presented. As you can see, I said the path makes a zigzag from the cycleway. There are steps at the northern end, and it runs adjacent to the southern boundary. So basically, obviously we've had representations in terms of the use of the recreation ground. This facility we don't think will impact on the use of that field. It simply provides an access route. Mention was made of the trees and at the site visit, and obviously there has been an inspection of those trees. Our tree officer considers most of the trees to be of poor quality and doesn't oppose the removal of them. We've been back to the applicants in terms of the possibility to retain the 2 yew trees that are there. They will aim to retain as many trees as possible. The removal of the trees is the worst case scenario. However, once the route is pegged out following undergrowth clearance, it is hoped that, if possible, certain trees will be able to be retained. We're not certain whether the yew trees can be retained. However, we have a condition in place to make sure that replacements are planted. The trees won't give the coverage, but obviously, given that it will form a public path, then it needs to be open and attractive to users as well. That's all I have to say, Chair.
Thank you, Norman. Well, before we debate the matter, it is now time for the speakers to speak. So, Ms Evans, if you care to come into the main chamber and aim for that chair there, that would be helpful. Take a seat, thank you. If you could make yourself comfortable, Ms Evans, and if you want some water, by all means. No? Okay. Now you have 5 minutes, which is strictly adhered to.
Yeah, I'll take 5 minutes.
Okay, fine. Okay, kick off then, please. And you can turn your microphone on by pressing the green.
This one here, okay?
That's it.
Well, I've lived in Waynfelon since 1988 in Waynfelon Avenue. Since that time, I've always had dogs, and I've used the ambulance field to walk my dogs. Luckily, we've got a dog box there that we can use, but I found, particularly of late, that it's looking very unkept around the school area, particularly rubbish. Mr Jerry Meyer can verify that I've been annoyed about that. I have asked for another bin to be put there, and luckily for me, the AM, Mrs Neagle, going for me, so we can put, because I go down there, I pick all the rubbish up as I'm going round there, you know what I mean? Try and tidy it up a bit. The last year, haven't seemed to be a lot of problems there, but prior to that, we were having a lot of young teenagers drinking there, partying there. On many occasions, I've taken a black bag down there and picked up the bottles and the cans and the rubbish they've left behind. Even once I had to fetch a tent from there and put in the bin that they had left. Now, if you walk 100 yards from that field, across the cycle track, you'll come across a lot of unused needles, used needles, drug paraphernalia, and God knows what, as well as people picking up after their dog fouling, but choosing to throw it in the trees as opposed to using any bins that are provided. So that annoys me. Now, I know for a fact that drug dealers use that field to stash whatever they stash. And on many occasions, I've come across dubious people hanging around there and looking around there. You know, drive back, I don't want to get into all of that. So, with more access now to this field, someone say something? No?
No, it's just Councillor Ashley. Don't worry about it.
With more access now, are we going to get more undesirable people hanging around there? That's my main concern, really, about this path going through. Originally, we were told it was a bicycle track going through there. That's not the case. I didn't realise that. But even so, we're going to have a track going through there, and I'm worried that we're going to have more undesirable people visiting the field for whatever reason they choose. Okay, thank you. I'll leave you to get on with your business.
Okay.
Thank you.
You don't want to stay there for them?
No, I didn't realise I'd be so long in here. Sorry.
Not to worry.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Chair, for letting me speak. I've got an interest in that I'm a member of the governors at George Street School, so I've got to give that interest. I've been associated with George Street School for over 50 years. I went there myself, my children have gone there, and my grandchildren are there now. As far back as the Gwent County Council, when I was Chair of Governors at George Street School, we have been trying wholeheartedly to get a safe walkaway within the Wainfedding area for our children to school. Without little success with the Gwent County Council. We've got a traffic problem where, albeit that it's only an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon, where people are double parking, sometimes treble parking, leaving their cars and going up into the school, picking their children up, coming out and going. I've contacted the Free Such Chair of Governors in the past, and they've come up, but as soon as they see a police officer with a uniform on, they don't do it. So anyway, we are very, very pleased as governors and as the community that we have finally got something to work on. We've had letters from the ambulance station where people have been parking in the ambulance station, stopping emergency vehicles going out to emergency calls. We have waited, as I say, we have waited a very long time for this. 7 years ago, we had 236 pupils in George Street School. Due to the closure of Pontymoyle and Pont-y-Wennet, we are now nearing our capacity of 400. I think this is a very good thing that people will allow people to walk their children from Pont-y-Wennet up over Merchants Hill across the cycle track, and from Pontymoyle across the Tesco's right away, and up to the traffic lights and in to fetch them up. I ask members to support this application. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jeremiah. Mr. Williams, would you care to come down? Thanks.
Thank you. The reasons for the scheme, and again it was discussed earlier, is that George Street School is expanding as part of the 21st Century Schools programme, and the pupils' numbers have increased 32% since September 2013. And we're aware of the issues of congestion near the school entrance and the limitations of the existing infrastructure. George Street itself, some of the footways are less than a metre wide. So there was an opportunity to address these issues with a funding bid to Welsh Assembly Government under their Safe Routes in Communities funding stream. We submitted an application in financial year 2014-15. It was well received by Welsh Government but didn't gain support. We resubmitted that for this financial year and we were successful. And the funding is awarded on the basis only available for the scheme in question. It's not available for use for any other purpose. Currently, over 30 pupils live to the east of the A4043, and the ramp will provide safe access to them for the school. And also, the school walks pupils down to Pontypool Active Living Centre on a weekly basis, and the ramp will provide direct access to the cycle route, again avoiding the narrow infrastructure on George Street. I come on to the congestion issue as well. Improved footway access to George Street School, along with other measures to encourage active travel, will encourage parents, hopefully, for the parents themselves and children to walk to school to reduce the congestion outside on the school day. The school itself is a pedestrian link. It's not an extension of the cycle route, and it's not designed as such, although cyclists will be allowed to use it should they wish. The scheme includes staggered barriers at the top and bottom to discourage inappropriate use by motorcyclists, but that will then allow wheelchair users, users of mobility scooters and parents with prams and buggies to use it. Picking up on the point of the amenity and green space, the path is kept close to the southern boundary of the field, as was shown on the plan, kept adjacent to the Amber station, and where the land steepens then, we come north and return south to achieve a suitable gradient. And that we've minimised the loss of the green area. The footpath will reduce the existing green area by less than 7% in terms of the overall area. Access will still be made to the area for recreational use, such as children play and for dog walkers. And we plan to introduce a new additional dog bin at the bottom of the ramp, in addition to the existing provision that's there. And also, we are happy to provide a new bench in that area if the community feel it would be of benefit. Also, we'll maintain access for the grass clipping of the area. We'll add specialist advice on the trees, and none of them are subject to tree preservation orders. But the exact degree of site clearance required will only be able to determine when we get in there and actually set the scheme out. But as was mentioned earlier on, we will continue to work with tree specialists to minimise the amount of trees we take out, and endeavour to keep the yew trees, as was mentioned in the report earlier, and also work with the authorities, ecologists, to provide mitigation measures appropriate for the area to offset any impact of the scheme. In terms of antisocial behaviour, a reduction in the density of the tree line will allow greater overlook and natural surveillance of the area, and it's hoped that the additional pedestrian traffic will discourage those who wish to take part in antisocial behaviour from congregating in that area. During construction of the scheme, the works will be self-contained within the site itself, and we will manage the deliveries in and out of the site itself outside the school peak hours, which is we're already aware that there is congestion. Our contractors are experienced in working in and around schools, and they will be closely supervised. The last point, Chair and Committee, is the public engagement. We do not, for Safe Routes in the Community schemes, we don't undertake a formal public consultation, because much of the work we undertake on them, it comes under highway regulations, so they're not normally subject to planning consent. But what we've done year on year is to undertake drop-in information events to talk to local people in the areas that the schemes are being undertaken.
That's time up now, Mr Williams, I'm afraid.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Okay, members, any comments or questions? Councillor Evans, then Councillor Waite. Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just surprised to hear Andrew saying that there wasn't TPOs on the yew trees. Norman's already discussed the mitigating circumstances around the trees, but I'm surprised to hear him say that there's no TPOs on the yew trees. I take the point that Andrew's made about the cutting back, then, if you like to say, of the trees there, which would make gathering there more uncomfortable for users, and to that point I think that would allay the lady's fears that spoke earlier. What I would say overall is that we are all parents and grandparents, and if it was possible to have a safer route to school, I would put my hands up for it, to be quite honest with you, and I would approve the officer's recommendation.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure perhaps if I should have declared an interest, but Pontymoor School was closed just over a year ago, which was in my ward, and I know that that pupils walk over to the George Street School, and I would fully support what Councillor McJeremiah said, to have a safe routes for our children to go to school. I think that's the most important thing we have to do. We have had a few hiccups on the safe routes to school in Cumbernaskye, but I think everything is being dealt with now as we speak. But I think I would want to support Councillor Mike Jeremiah. Because, like I said, we have a duty of care to the children and to the parents, and I would support this fully. Thank you.
Councillor Ashley.
I went on the site visit, and I was the one that brought up the yew trees, but as far as the other trees are concerned, they were, as far as I could see, sycamores and ash trees, and as such they were the trees that grew up down the line of I believe the old railway line there and drive. Having cycled and walked down that particular route below, you would be opening it up, which from an ecological point of view would allow other things to grow down there, which should actually make it a much nicer area in some ways. So actually replanting it, restocking it is what we've been advocating on some other areas. It shouldn't be set in stone that you leave trees there. And that's not, some people would say, well, you should leave things like that, but it does actually mean that more species would actually open up, make it more interesting. That's from an ecological point of view. I would like to support Councillor Jeremiah in terms of actually opening that up, because having been up there and looked at that, I was horrified actually at the access availability there, and certainly getting up off of that safe route. So that really does seem a good scheme, providing that we can, if they're okay, we can leave those yew trees there, because they do seem to be the one bit of tree there that's worthwhile. As far as the mitigation measures for ecology, there's a good opportunity there to add an access up through that little area there, which would make it a very interesting area, providing you can leave it nice and open with sight lines for safety, because I do take the point in there that it's got a lot of things that make an interesting route to school for young people, and also providing a thing up an access point, which taking the point that everybody else has said.
Can I just ask Councillor Ashley, before taking any further speakers, you said providing the yew trees are kept.
Well, let's put it this way, hopefully if they're okay and they're not going to be in the way, okay?
So you were moving an amendment then. Thank you.
Thank you. I also support this application. Having been on the site meeting as well, I also expressed concern about those particular trees. Having said that, and living in Cross Caeliog, where something similar has been done in terms of the cycleway, the clearance of the trees which are not so necessary has made a tremendous difference in terms of opening up the area, and I think that the local residents, once it's done, will appreciate just what a big impact that will have in making the area much safer, and just the whole idea of improving that access for children. And when you talk of the children going on a weekly basis down to the living centre, it's so important that they can do that safely. It also provides a natural environment which they can use for nature study, etc., and link in with the educational curriculum. So I think it's a very important and very worthwhile movement forward. I would certainly, having read the correspondence from local residents, some of the comments about the needs for seating on that green, I'm sure will be followed up given what the council's representative said just now, and perhaps the local community council could look at putting in a little bit of extra money there for swings or various activities for the youngsters as well. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Councillor Seaborn.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to know, would there be any provision provided by the school for a walk-in bus so that cars can be parked off, off-site, relieving the entrance and the cars being parked outside? But I will be supporting this application.
That was mentioned at the site meeting, and I believe Councillor Jeremiah said that he would be taking that forward, so hopefully they'll look into that. Thanks. Councillor Constance.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to support this recommendation. I think it's a safety issue which has been well handled by both the Council and the safety on roads, and I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
It's been moved by Councillor Constance and seconded by Councillor Seaborn. Anyone else wish to say anything before we move to a vote? And no amendments being proposed? Okay, all those in favour of the motion then please show. That too is unanimous. You're not allowed to vote, Councillor Jeremiah. So we've ignored your... Okay, thanks. Let's move to item 10, the proposed demolition of the existing bridge parapet and reinstatement in a more traditional style of masonry. Richard's going to start off on that one, please.
Again, this, because it's a neighbourhood services application, it needs to be in my name rather than Duncan's. It's a listed building consent application, and because it's made by the council, we are unable to determine it. It's only the National Assembly that can determine it. So our recommendation here is that members agree to refer it to the Assembly for a decision. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody wish to comment or question this? Councillor Evans.
I will move the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Is that seconded? Anybody wish to debate it? Okay, let's move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. That was Councillor Evans and Councillor Seaborn's moving it and seconding. Sorry, Rachel. That seems to be unanimous. Thank you.